Hello, welcome to another episode of Outermost Uncle. Come with me on a road trip across Middle America. We'll be riding free, the wind in our hair. Not really, but last time I asked you a question about ideas that you might have about what I can do about this Denise and her dad thing. So anyway, I stewed over it, and on this road trip, I came up with some ideas, and I'm going to read to you this installment. We'll see what happened with that. It's called Rebel of the Past, a road trip through memory, mystery, and Middle America, crossing paths and state lines. When you live about as far west as you can get in the lower 48, any eastbound road trip consists of days and days of craggy buttes and plains. I used to get antsy going over what seemed like the same landscape every day. Anymore, I see the nuances, the changes in scenery and light that each state brings. I consciously notice that on this, my 116th or whatever cross-country road trip, I am completely interested in the scenes passing by outside the window. It's not days or hours rolling by, but states. Maybe it's retirement. Maybe it's the interstate. Maybe it's that truck stops have definitely upped their game over the years. I no longer have to accept run-of-the-mill potato chips or JoJo's that have been too long under the hot lamps. I can have cheese curds and smoked fish. Kombucha. I aim my car towards southern Indiana. I'm going to meet my mom's cousin Jamie for the first time. After that, it's on to Ohio and my grandmother's house. Well, she doesn't live there anymore. She died in 1984. The house belongs to someone else. I'm meeting my cousin John and his wife Gabe for more Uncle Bill research in the town Bill grew up in. On my way, I get word that John and Gabe are sick. Their travel is questionable. I'm armed with a 35mm Pentax Spotmatic camera. This is the first time I've used a Spotmatic, and I immediately sailed into a cloud drift of nostalgia at the satisfying kerchunk of the released shutter. Nothing like an all-metal 1970s SLR to bring you right back to a hometown parade, shooting the marching band as they warmed up for, well, marching. The weight of the Spotmatic is solid in my hands, its metal cool from the morning air. At a rest stop, I frame the shot, press the shutter, kerchunk. The sound is like a door clicking shut in time. A passerby glances over and mutters, "Old school." I catch the hint of curiosity, maybe a little nostalgia. My mind wanders as I binge on podcasts. I'm noticing dead animals, so much roadkill. This interstate adventure has me subconsciously cataloging the different types of carrion each state has to offer. Every state has an overabundance of smashed and bloated raccoons. As I get further east, I see woodchucks. There never used to be woodchucks. What happened? Along the way, I WhatsApp with Denise. We talk about where I am and what's going on with her on San Salvador Island. At the same time, I email with Mr. X. He's got an easy, self-deprecating sense of humor. Our exchanges are friendly, and we're eagerly sharing pictures and stuff I've found about the Eastern Range while researching my uncle. There's a CB yearbook type PDF file I found on a Navy Museum website that has pictures and nifty info on the building of the tracking stations that comprise the Eastern Range. He replies, "Thanks again for the link, and I would appreciate anything else that you find." A message arrives. Gabe is too ill and not coming. The trip just happens to coincide with the total solar eclipse. My destination is in the path of totality, like right smack in the middle of the path. Everywhere I stop, people are traveling to the eclipse. It's a weird pilgrimage. I run into some of the same people over a period of 3 days. We happen to be on the same P cycle, I guess. One of my P cycle buddies gives me eclipse viewing glasses. During our first meeting, we compliment each other on our camping rigs. After 3 days of P breaks, we marvel at the fact that we keep connecting. They're waiting until Omaha to decide between Texas and New York, right or left, with an eye on the weather. John's travel is questionable. Wyoming adds antelope and a lot of squished prairie dogs to the roadkill lineup. One morning, I stopped at Pine Bluffs, Wyoming. It's on the Wyoming-Nebraska border. It's a beautiful, clear day, and I decided to take a hike up a butte to an overlook. Denise has told me about others on the island who are children of Eastern Range employees and military. I'm thinking of Denise's brother, Duke. His father was from Nebraska. I'd stumbled across some passenger records linking someone with his father's name to a trip from San Sal. This person was born in Pine Bluffs. Possibly a connection? Anyway, I send the Pine Bluffs overlook photo to Denise. She responds with, "Wow, look at all that land," which makes me laugh because I'm standing on the border of Wyoming and Nebraska, and she's on a 5 by 12 mile island in the Atlantic. Wow, look at all that land. Look at all that ocean. I receive a message. The folks who now own my grandmother's house have changed their minds and decided it's not a good time for a visit. The podcasts I listen to are mostly camera-related stuff or podcasts to improve my writing. I know I should listen to more of those, right? I decide to spice things up, and I come across My Dad Wrote a Porno. It catches my eye because my dad wrote a porno. Seriously. I truly recommend My Dad Wrote a Porno if you want a good belly laugh. What I really get hooked on is a podcast about adoptees reuniting with their birth families. That podcast gives me clarity. I formulate a plan. I want to talk to Mr. X face-to-face, eventually. He has so much insight into my uncle and the Cold War era Eastern Range. His locale is a long day's drive from my home, and let's face it, I'm a road trip girl. My plan? Denise should write a letter saying everything she wants to say to her father. At the end of the eventual conversation with him, whenever that day is, I'll hand him the letter. I stop at a hit camp in Missouri, a giant old brick farmhouse in the country. The man working on the house asked me where I'm from. Washington State, but originally Michigan, my pat answer. I would have stayed in Michigan, he says. I visit a Confederate graveyard up the road. The lane leading to the cemetery is narrow with a 5-mile-per-hour speed limit. A bloated squirrel, all splayed-legged and dead, lies in the middle of it. I get a message. John decides he's going to meet me in Indiana after all. My mom's cousin Jamie and her husband Glenn Dale, guys seem to have 2 first names here, live in southern Indiana. They gave me a warm welcome and put me up for a few nights. A shower and I'm out of the car. Jamie reminds me of my mom. She shares a couple of stories from Uncle Bill's childhood. On the farm, Daddy had a big sandstone wheel. It had a seat and pedals on it. Underneath there was an old tire filled with water. They would use this to sharpen their knives. Bill tried it out, but put gasoline in the tire. I can still see the doctor cutting the blisters off Bill's legs. Another time, Bill put a snake in his hair and scared the daylights out of Jamie's mom. Here's Jamie. She's 88, and she hopped right up on that concrete wall to water her flowers. And then, Eclipse Day arrives. The main attraction. In the center of a total eclipse, the horizon's edge all around has a glow as if the sun has just set. It's eerie. We watch the stars come out in the middle of the day. A UPS truck drives by, unconcerned. We then head to Archbold, a portal to other dimensions. On the way to Ohio, I mull my options. I'll not divulge to Mr. X that I know, but Denise deserves to know, and that I've been in contact with her dad. My conclusion, indecisiveness killed that squirrel. I tell Denise that I've been in touch with her father. I tell her we've spoken on the phone and are emailing each other. I share my idea of a letter. Earlier, I posted my quest for information regarding my Uncle Bill's family to an Archbold Facebook group and came up with quite a few leads, one being Liz. Her family lived next door to my mom's family. Her family owned a hardware store in town. Her mom's name was Lady. Liz took us for a tour of the area, which included the Choi Chinese food plant, now owned by ConAgra, the high school, the elementary school, all the schools. Actually, it doesn't take long to take a tour of Archbold. Liz is bubbly and engaging and knows almost every bit of local history there is to know. If she doesn't know, she calls somebody. And here's Liz holding a picture my mom drew of her in 1958. Archbold is a town built along railroad tracks. The sound of a train whistle to this day brings me memories of my mom's hometown. It's a busy east-west route. On January 4th, 1948, 10 children were killed when a train hit a tractor-drawn bobsled a mile east of Archbold. My mom and my aunt each lost their best friends. John asks to visit the site, and Liz obliges. I really want to meet the enigmatic Ross Taylor, my uncle's best friend, in person. I know it has to be soon because, well, he's freaking 92. Need I say more? There he is. Ross built his New England-style house in the 1970s. He's quick to answer the door and immediately whisks us into a narrow living room with a giant flat-screen TV. He's watching golf. He turns it off. He tells us about his time with the local rag, the Buckeye. His son owns a chocolate factory up the road. The three of us drive up to Wasion for some Italian. Ross tells us again that Bill was the smartest person he'd ever known. While his dad was away, Bill disassembled his dad's car just to see how it worked. Me, jokingly, did he put it back together? Ross, that I don't know. That would be so like Bill. He seems to have left a lot of things unfinished. John and I drive to Bryan, Ohio, where my grandmother's family lived before moving to Archbold. He's got an address and wants to see if their old house is still there. That and Archbold doesn't have a liquor store. Brian does. The house is no longer there. In its place is a dum-dum factory. The factory takes up a few blocks. There's a water tower in the shape of a dum-dum. On the way, we stop at Ross's son's chocolate factory. It says, "Come in whenever we're here," and they weren't there. Ross Taylor said Bill said Don Deal, Bill's diving partner on that fateful day in 1958, came for money. He had anything he ever wanted just handed to him. Ha! I knew it. I like to have my theories proven. A while back, I'd come across a newspaper article that was printed about 3 weeks after Bill and Don disappeared. It said that a sport plane registered to Donald Deal had been stolen from a hangar in Florida. I'm like, what 23-year-old owns a sport plane? The next night, Ross takes us to a local restaurant for dinner. He's had a few, and afterward, when we drop him back at home, he doesn't want to get out of the car. It's late, but he wants to take us to the chocolate factory. I've got a key. Come on, let's get a piece of chocolate. If it were just me, raiding a chocolate factory at night with a tipsy 92-year-old would be epic. However, John is just about ready to keel over from sickness. He really shouldn't be traveling. We call it a night. On the road back home to the West Coast, I make a stop at Fort McCoy in rural Wisconsin. Though the campground is well removed from the actual fort, there's a loudspeaker that plays pre-recorded reveille, retreat, and taps at the correct hours. The campground is in the woods, and as the owls inquire after my chef, I try to make sense of my time in Archbold. I decide Minnesota has the most interesting roadkill, a lot of deer, and they've added turkeys to the mix. For $5 a night, I camp at a site on Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota. It's not very private, but I do like getting a good deal. I hadn't heard back from Mr. X about the National Geographic article. I emailed him again because that article is golden. His reply, "Thanks for the link. I have a copy of that issue on the way. I think I've done all I can, so I must opt out of anything further. Thank you for all the info, pictures, and memories you brought up." He's breaking up with me. I completely understand the weirdness of me, a complete stranger, butting into his life. I wonder about the memories I brought up. I find myself surprised that I'm not upset. On the long drive west, I try to make sense of it all. This strange winding journey through history, family, and the open road. I retrace conversations in my head. The warm welcome from Jamie, the half-finished stories of Uncle Bill, the surprise connections like Liz holding that drawing my mother made of her decades ago. Even the roadkill, a grim but oddly poetic reminder that time moves on, leaving its own kind of evidence in the rubble of the past. And then there's Mr. X. His last message is polite but firm, a quiet closing of a door. I was just another unexpected traveler on his path, someone who briefly crossed into his orbit, bringing a flood of old memories before disappearing into the rearview mirror. As the miles slip by, I think about Denise's letter, about the eclipse, about the weird little moments that stick, the stranger muttering old school at my camera, the bizarre camaraderie of peace cycle buddies, the chocolate factory that almost, but not quite, became a midnight heist. There's no neat resolution, no big revelation, just motion, states rolling past, a vintage camera in the passenger seat, the echo of a train whistle in a town built on tracks, and the feeling that even without all the answers, the search itself is worth it.